The United States has the largest prison population in the world. In 2013, it was estimated that 2.4 million people were incarcerated. It may seem like a good thing that we're getting these criminals off the streets, but once a prisoner is released, there's a 77% chance that they will be reincarcerated within the next 5 years. In 2012, 47.7 people incarcerated had committed a violent crime, including murder, rape, assault, robbery, and many others. If prisons release these people after they have served their time, it is very likely that they will commit the same or even a worse crime and end up right back where they were. People do not change unless they work on changing themselves. And right now, prisons do not offer a proper environment for moral growth.
I think we can all agree that the crimes many prisoners commit could be considered evil, but how exactly are we going to define the word evil? Psychologist Simon Baron-Cohen defines evil as a complete lack of empathy. There are 3 types of people who share this complete lack of empathy. They are narcissists, people with borderline personality disorder, and psychopaths. This is Taylor. He may look like the average 20-year-old male, but behind that smile is a brain completely void of empathy. Taylor is a psychopath, and he is in prison right now for murdering somebody. When asked about this senseless murder, Taylor showed absolutely no remorse.
The way she looked at me, it just made my blood boil. I felt like she's disrespecting me. Nobody gets away with that. It felt good. It felt like everything in the world was right. It felt like she got what she deserved. I don't know, man. If I had to do it over again, I'd just try harder not to get caught.
Baron-Cohen calls this complete lack of empathy that Taylor displays 0 degrees of empathy, and asserts that having 0 degrees of empathy can lead one to commit acts of cruelty, it can leave one insensitive to others, or simply socially isolated. Obviously, being socially isolated is not a crime, but committing acts of cruelty, like the one displayed by Taylor, is. And these people can do so without feeling any remorse. Empathy is often described as the ability to put yourself in someone else's shoes. Many criminals are unable to do this and as a result, are often left unaware of the consequences of their actions. In 2014, a study published in the European Journal of Personality compared the level of empathy and narcissism of incarcerated males with a control group of regular citizens. The results were as they hypothesized. Those in prison were more narcissistic and less empathetic than those who were not criminals. The sense of entitlement and lack of perspective that these men exhibit leads them to act in self-serving manners that often hurt others. As a result of these findings, the researchers in this article suggest that intervention should focus on motivating narcissists to view situations from others' perspectives. So what is the solution? Is it to stop the original crime from ever happening? While that seems ideal, it's not exactly probable to predict every time that somebody is going to commit a crime. Instead, we should focus on trying to increase prisoners' capacities for empathy while they are incarcerated, so that they will not do more evil once they are released. James Gould suggests that the only way to truly change one's disposition is by committing oneself to spiritual exercises. Gould argues that psychology-focused therapy places too large of an emphasis on changing one's situation or response to a stimulus, but the real root of the problem lies in the disposition of a person, and the following spiritual exercises will help to shape that disposition. If properly utilized, meditation, formational reading, journaling, and self-examination can allow a person to look deep within oneself and identify what they need to change. They can gather knowledge through formational readings, express their thoughts through journaling, reflect on the day through meditation, and use self-examination as a means to identify their flaws and improve upon them. If taken seriously, these 4 spiritual exercises will allow criminals to use their time in prison as a vehicle of change and prevent these prisoners from making the same mistakes once they are released into society. So now the question is, how are we going to introduce these spiritual exercises into prisons? What we would do is implement a program where prisoners are given a test upon entering the prison that examines their level of empathy. If a prisoner exhibits a dangerously low level of empathy, they would be required to take classes in each of these 4 spiritual exercises. These classes would be taught by professionals who specialize in each field, and they would meet once a week. The prisoners would be encouraged to practice these spiritual exercises even on days when their class does not meet. During the classes and any time prisoners are using resources provided by their teachers, it would be necessary to have security guards present to ensure the safety of the prisoners and the professionals. When prisoners are being considered for parole, they would retake the test of empathy to see if they had improved at all. Although this test cannot be the sole determining factor of the prisoner's release, the parole committee and judges will take into consideration these scores and how much they have improved when reviewing their case. The main costs of this program would come from paying the professionals to teach the classes, paying for pre-tests and post-tests, as well as paying for any materials the professionals request, such as books for the formational readings. Until further research is done, an exact estimate cannot be given for the cost of this program. Hopefully, as the program is successful, we will see a decrease in the number of prisoners, therefore we will be saving government funds that would be spent housing prisoners. In a study performed in a Texas state penitentiary for women, a small group of women were in an explorations class that met 2 hours a week for 7 months. The goal of this class was to help the women become more empathetic beings. The women that took part in the study explained that prison creates an environment where no one can be trusted. The guards are unpredictable, the parole system is unfair, and even your best friend could turn on you at any minute. This lack of trust caused the women in the prison, who had already led distressing lives in the real world, to become even more hardened and to only care about themselves. Throughout the course of the group sessions, the women began to see a transformation in themselves and others. At the beginning of these sessions, women exhibited behaviors such as putting their heads down on their desks and whispering to others, which demonstrated that they were uninterested in this explorations group and the possibility of changing themselves. According to researchers, participants hesitated to offer their personal experiences for fear that information would be used against them by others. Throughout the 7 months, this fear began to diminish as women's empathy grew and they were able to relate to one another. This time of self-reflection, as Goldwood also suggests, allowed the women to change their natural instinct to not only look after themselves and instead transform into more compassionate people. While this method may not work on all prisoners, specifically those with no empathy at all, it was proven effective for cultivating empathy in those who were recommended for inclusion based on their perceived potential to be reflective and thoughtful about their life experiences. This study concluded that most participants developed a disposition toward a variety of empathetic practices, at least within the group. If the therapy utilizing self-examination in a group setting helped these women within the group, perhaps with more time, this disposition could be generalized to all situations. So let's take a look at how spiritual exercises helped Taylor transform into a more empathetic person.
Through this experience, I feel like I've learned how to put myself in other people's shoes, and truthfully, I feel like I've never harmed another human being again. I've gained a better understanding of myself and what motivates me, and I now understand other people's emotions better.
So this may have worked for Taylor, but that doesn't mean it'll work for everybody. Let's look at some potential setbacks of this program. Many prisoners have not completed high school and may be working toward their GED while in prison. If this is the case, they may struggle with literacy or critical thinking skills that would be required for this training. Modifications could be made to help these individuals, but because of the large number, it might be improbable to make adjustments for such a large group of people. Another problem that could affect the outcome of this program is the inmates not taking the spiritual exercises seriously. Among those lacking empathy, it is not uncommon to misbehave often and resist instruction from authority. This would cause the inmates to show little to no improvement in the development of empathy. However, if this program helps even a fraction of prisoners released back into society become more empathetic people, I believe it has served its purpose and is a successful program.